Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 152. I am Morgan, aka Blonde Diesel. This is a podcast about gaming news, all gaming platforms, and technology in general from the perspective of a lifelong nerd and now a gaming dad. Please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. Subs, bell ringing, and comments on YouTube is great. Retweets on Twitter and iTunes reviews are the most helpful. Also, be sure to let me know if you have any questions or topics for following episodes by replying to a tweet on Twitter or in the YouTube comments, or you can become a patron and message me on there. I want to thank this month's Patreon supporters: Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, Man-Made Golf, Lunchbox, and Dale. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BondDiesel. This episode, we are going to talk about a bit of a Twitch exodus, Tarkov updates, PlayStation's upcoming showcase, listener questions, content updates, and more. Jumping right into it, we are going to talk about the Twitch exodus. So there was a lot that happened for Twitch in the last week. The main thing we thought was going to be a day without Twitch or a day off Twitch or whatever it was called. So on, I believe it was the 1st, there was kind of a coordinated movement of Twitch creators and streamers and so on to not stream on the platform as kind of a protest against their inaction on heat raids and a bunch of stuff that's happening, right? So that has been reported since then as showing I think it was a 10 or 15% drop in viewership, which is significant. That's a big deal. So enough people got behind that, that it affected their viewership, which significantly affected their ad revenue and all kinds of stuff. Now, that was supposed to be the big news of the week. And then what happened kind of alongside that, which actually may have been a part of that viewership drop, was that Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo both announced that they were switching to YouTube for streaming. These are a couple of the biggest creators, a couple of the site's biggest creators, and it's no small thing. I don't think either are necessarily the biggest, but they were, I'm sure top 10, top 20, and I believe Tim the Tatman still has, I want to say he has the record for the most subs at any given time. So to lose him is significant, and I can't imagine is helping with the issues they're having with just everything in general. So there was a third creator who decided to switch to YouTube as well. You may not have heard of, but it was me. So I have also switched over to YouTube. It was kind of inspired by seeing Lupo move over, who was the only consistent Twitch streamer I still watched at this point. And when he moved, I realized that I may still pop over there, especially for jobs, for games I care about. But there's not really much holding me there. And I felt like there's a possibility that moving over would kind of reinvigorate me a bit to do more content, to stream more often, to do the podcast live as I am right now on my YouTube. And so far so good. I've really enjoyed it. There's definitely some things about YouTube streaming that are not as good, I would say, as Twitch. Twitch definitely has a lot of really nice features. But there's also some stuff about YouTube that's nice as well. So far I'm really enjoying it. And it's been interesting watching Lupo specifically. You can definitely tell there's been some kinks they've had to work out. And what I'm really curious about is what this means for Twitch in the long run. I titled this podcast, "Is Twitch in Trouble?" And realistically, it's probably not, at least not yet. And they still dominate the streaming market. They still dominate the numbers. They have Amazon behind them, right? So while YouTube is no slouch, and they've been making inroads in the streaming market and share, they've got some really weird things to work out for people from like Twitch refugees that are used to seeing a very consolidated space for streamers and discovery and things like that. YouTube doesn't really have that. They just kind of have YouTube pages who also happen to stream. And so for people who have like existing communities and things like that, it can be very easy to switch over and very lucrative to do so, assuming that YouTube is also throwing in money for them to switch. Believe it or not, I did not get paid to switch over. I know it's probably very surprising that someone with like 1,500 subs and who isn't partnered on the platform got nothing, but it's assumed that Dr. Lupo got paid pretty handsomely to switch over. Not to mention all of the money he's going to make from memberships and things like that. So, what's the solution though? I mean, like one thing I've thought about is what's gonna stop essentially the same thing from happening on YouTube if people do switch over, or if they go over to Facebook. I know like YouTube specifically doesn't have like a rating feature, but there's nothing that would stop people who organize in like Discords or forums or on Reddit and stuff from still brigading YouTube streamers or Facebook streamers. I'm not under the impression, especially I don't. Everyone's asking for Twitch to have these tools to prevent this situation, and I'm not under the impression YouTube has anything either. The only thing I can think of is that there are so many, to have a YouTube account, you do have to, I believe, provide a phone number and verify your identity and stuff like that. So there may be some safety there, and maybe that runs into a category where I'm not super familiar and I don't know a ton about it all, but. I don't know. What I'm guessing is that this is going to spur Twitch to move even faster to address a bunch of these concerns. What I think though is that it seems like whatever platform is the biggest and has the most eyes on it is the one that would be getting all of the pressure of the situation, right? So if YouTube happened to have 80% of the streaming share, they would probably be the ones getting, gone after, right? But they aren't. Twitch is. And I'm definitely like mixed on the whole situation where I feel like there is a there it is tough in a way where they can't just hit the make features to prevent these issues button and it will suddenly fix everything. Like that's not going to happen. That's not how it works. But what they can do is be a little more transparent. They keep saying things, and sometimes you really ride that balance of sometimes less is more. And with my experience more being in video games is, as a fan of The Division, it kind of seems like no matter what they do, they get attacked either way. So if they don't give any information until they have some, people are going to say that they're not being transparent. They're not telling them anything. They're keeping them in the dark. But then if they give updates that don't really go anywhere and they're very incremental and small, people complain about that it's not meaningful, right? So it seems like that's an issue Twitch is dealing with right now. So I'm kind of curious to see what Twitch does. I'm kind of curious to see if YouTube starts dealing with more of these issues as more people come over to this platform, because it seems like there are a fair number of people switching, and Facebook as well, which I believe is the third largest streaming, even though it's like Twitch, and then pretty far behind it is YouTube, and then way behind everyone else is Facebook. But they still have a few percentage points of the share. So I'm curious how that works out. I'm also curious that, most of these contracts with streamers seem like they tend to be 2, maybe 3 years. It's easy to forget that I think it was Lyric and Lupo and Tim all signed 2-year contracts 2 years ago. And so who's to say what happens in 2 years? Something tells me it has a lot to do with the bag that's hanging in front of them. Maybe it will be a factor if Twitch kind of gets their act together and starts doing things better. I know for me, it's just a bit of an experiment. I just realized while I'm streaming that I still have, my Twitch page there in the bottom right of this graphic if you're watching the video. And it's for me, this was more of a matter of I'm never going to get partnership on Twitch, at least not doing the things I've done for the last 2 years, right? Not even close. In theory, if I get enough viewership on the videos and the podcast and anything else I do on YouTube, I could get partnered on YouTube. Not easily. It's going to take a while. And realistically, what it's going to take is that some Division content comes out that's really great, and I can get a bunch of views on streams and videos. And then I can probably get partnered, but it's within reach. It's I have more than enough subscribers, and I've been really close on the viewing hours in the past. So I think I can do it again, and we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the whole Twitch thing was interesting. I'm really curious to see what moves get made, who Twitch goes after to try to reestablish some of that. I can't imagine that for any big streamers right now, it's super lucrative or attractive to go to Twitch right now, simply because of the PR side of it. I'm definitely curious to what moves, if YouTube takes advantage of these big creators coming over by, refreshing their UI, by adding a bunch of features that are missing that people have been asking for a long time from their streaming platform. It could, really maybe start to really dig into Twitch's timeshare or attention share or whatever. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. The second story here is talking a bit about the PlayStation showcase that has been announced. That's coming up here in a week or so, and all of the speculation about what's going to be there. So I think the most likely thing that can pretty much be guaranteed is even more Horizon Forbidden West footage and probably gameplay and things like that. I would still really love to see some gameplay that is very obviously like someone hands on a controller actually playing the game, because everything we've seen so far, even this last one that had her fighting some like woolly mammoth type of robot, I mean, it was pretty obviously scripted. It was probably a mix of quote unquote gameplay and scripted stuff happening, but it would be, I always really get excited to finally see like someone hands on with a game. Other games that are being kind of talked about. A big one is there's a lot of people who seem to think that the God of War Ragnarok will make an appearance. And I think that's probably a fair assumption that we'll get our first actual look at it. There's been a few teases in the last few PlayStation, like big PlayStation events over the last year or two. And there is, pretty good reason to believe we'll see something from that. What I'm really curious about is whether or not, Forbidden West almost seems to have kind of a Miles Morales type feel to it, where it kind of seems like they might have, it's not like a complete like all out sequel where it's kind of taking the base game of the original and adding a bunch of really good stuff to it, a bunch of good updates and things like that, and giving a nice good experience that may not necessarily be like a full straight up true sequel. I suspect that's not going to be the case with Ragnarok, because I think Ragnarok, it's been a while since God of War came out. And so it seems fair to assume that by this time, this isn't just like a giant DLC. This is going to be a straight up full, sequel. And I don't have an Xbox, or I don't have a PlayStation, so I haven't played the most recent God of War. I think I've watched it be played through multiple times, at least twice, and watched some more videos and stuff on it because I played all of the God of Wars up until this one, and so I care about that story and that character and things like that. I personally don't care for them going for the new style, the over the shoulder, and it just starts to feel like every other PlayStation, exclusive that they have. Or obviously, it's very different than the other ones, but I still miss that like way far away kind of, not really isometric, but just the more classic God of War gameplay style. Obviously that game did extremely well, so my preference, it doesn't matter. I bet they're gonna go with what they did, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with it. It seems like, especially with the ending of God of War, they were definitely setting this up, kind of a Nordic influence on the next one. So, and Ragnarok is a pretty significant event in that culture. So, we'll have to see how that plays in, and if it's going to be as epic as it seems like it could be. One of the other things I've seen proposed is that people think that we may see something from from Naughty Dog, where they maybe some of this or all of it, them showing off or talking about the multiplayer mode that they've been working on for Last of Us 2, as well as maybe and probably an official announcement and maybe even footage of the original Last of Us remaster, which a lot of people seem to be expecting. That's a thing that I would really love to see come to PC. Sony is super duper reluctant to go that direction, and every game that they have gone that direction with, they just get some bizarre amounts of pushback from some Sony fans. It's very odd, because you don't see that coming from the other side. It's Microsoft has been pretty big about almost everything coming to PC, and even Game Pass being on PC Game Pass and Xbox. And no one seems to care. You just want to play your game wherever you prefer to play it. So I guess Sony fans feel like they'd be giving up some of their advantage, because for some reason people think that they are a part of this group that is this giant corporation that doesn't give a shit about them. But I don't know. You see it on both sides. It's really weird when people make their identity like one in one with a giant corporation who doesn't care who they are. But we'll see. But it is exciting that it looks like Sony did purchase a studio whose main job is doing ports to PC. So it seems like there is at least some interest or some action happening with that. And I would love to see a Last of Us remake get put on PC, because I would absolutely play it. And maybe one day, Last of Us 2 coming to PC as well. I suspect it's going to be a while. They take their sweet time for that stuff, but we'll see. As for other things, I haven't seen any like big rumors that seem super likely or anything, but we'll have to see. Well, I'm definitely more of a Xbox gamer and PC at this point. I would love to get like a PS5 digital at some point, and get to play some of these exclusives that I can't obviously play on Xbox or PC. So I do care about what's going on with them. And I really, truly hope that this generation sees Xbox and Sony have much more parity, because then they'll both be focused to or forced to step up their game. Because a lot of the weird decisions you've been seeing Sony make over the last few years is 100% because they whooped Xbox so bad in the last gen. They can do whatever they want. They can say, yeah, buy that game on PS4. And then if you get a PS5 one day, you're gonna have to buy it again, because we don't give a shit. We know you'll do it. And that's what domination of the market does. It makes them say, hey, we know what you're gonna have to do. So you can moan and groan about it, but we bet you're gonna do it. And most people probably will. So I would love to see more parity of the two platforms coming up, because I think it would be good for consumers more than anything. And I think it would also push both platforms to take some chances and to get a little bit wild, whether it comes to pricing or whether it comes to innovation or whatever. It would be maybe even cooperation. We'll see. On a bunch of other random topics, talking about Escape from Tarkov, they had a bunch of big updates. First, there was an event that started where, in Tarkov, it's a looting game, and there's essentially this thing where every map has a handful of locations that have the best loot, quote unquote. Well, it's been talked about a long time to have dynamic loot so that people are more willing and kind of forced to explore more of the map, and not everyone just rush these, three or handful of locations that have the best loot. And that, if they put in a dynamic system, it would make people more likely to kind of, explore the whole map and not just check out the same few places every time. So they basically started an event that's seems like it's the first step of that, where basically it nerfed a bunch of the really good loot spots, and people are not handling it well. But yeah. And then what happened alongside that was a big long tweet chain that came from the official channel for Escape from Tarkov, the Battlestate Games Twitter account, where they basically named off the next like 4 or 5 patches and said that they're all coming within the next 4 months. So by the end of the year, they include the new map, weapons, a bunch of new systems that they're going to be testing and implementing. And it's really exciting. It involves adding the first new map in almost 2 years, which is really exciting. It's good stuff. It's kind of what I said before about Twitch, about Division. They give out information when they have it. And if they gave out information that wasn't interesting more often, people would be mad. And when they don't put out anything because they don't have anything yet, people get mad. So this was a nice update. It seems like most people were excited about it. There's always going to be the pessimistic people who are always going to be upset no matter what they're told. But, we deal with them the right way, right? We smack that block button and we pretend they never existed. But it's good stuff. Tarkov is such a weird game because it's essentially trying to attain AAA, game mechanics and polish and gameplay and stuff, and they're doing it in a place where a lot of game devs don't want to go to make games in Russia. They're doing it where some of their financial documents that have come out about them make it seem like they're working people for not a whole bunch of money. Well, it looks like the guy who runs the company is making like a whole bunch of money. So the game has a bunch of weird vibes around it, right? So we'll have to see where that goes in the future. I did make a video about that. I think it's a 20-minute video talking about all of the different things, or 10, I don't know. I can't keep it straight, but I did do a video, talking about the more specific things that they're implementing and how I think that's going to affect the game. So here on the YouTube page, if that's where you're watching or listening to this, be sure to check that out. Another video I made was the state of the IP video for the Division. So if you're a fan of that franchise, I highly suggest checking out. That's the 20-minute video where I go through everything that's Division related gaming wise, that we know about, and even one thing we don't know anything about, which is Division 3. And I do a lot of discussion about what I think, if I think that's going to happen, and if it does, what it could be like and how far away it is. So definitely check that out. The gist of what I said is that I'm definitely at a crossroads where the Division has a bunch of games that are related to the IP coming, and it's got a bunch of other media, a novel, a movie, and so on. And I'm really at a crossroads of whether I think that is going one direction, which is Ubisoft is dedicated to the brand and they're going to keep investing in it, and they're going to, all of these projects are a sign that things are great. We're pushing forward. It's awesome. The other side of me thinks it may be going a direction of them just cashing in while they can, and then they're going to bounce. So I'm trying to remain optimistic. I'm trying to to remain hopeful that it's option one and not two. But I go into much more detail on that in that video. So be sure to check that out. I'll try to make sure to include a link either up at the top of the page here or down in the the information down below. So check that out. The last bit here I have is upcoming games. So we have Life is Strange True Colors coming out. That's a series I've wanted to get into ever since I played the Walking Dead game, the Telltale, because I never thought I would enjoy those games. And then the Walking Dead game, I played through all of it in like a week or two. And it was like one of my best gaming experiences in years. It was really good. I really enjoyed that story. And I really, I hope we get more of that one day. That Clem is one of my favorite game characters ever now. So this Life is Strange, I'm curious about this. It looks like you can play this one, like it's not connected to the previous ones. So I am curious about that. That comes on September 10th. We have the Insurgency Sandstorm coming out on console. So if you're looking for like a brutal, realistic-ish shooter on console, I suggest Insurgency Sandstorm. You will feel completely lost for a while, but it's brutal. The time to kill is extremely low. It's very quote unquote realistic in that way. It's a wild game. It's one of those games that you have to be willing to get into it, to get the full. Yeah, like you have to really get into it. But it looks like the people who do spend that time and really invest, it seems like it pays off. So that might be worth checking out for you. That comes out on September 29th at the end of this month. Back for Blood comes out early next month. That's the Left 4 Dead sequel, spiritual sequel by the people who made the Left 4 Dead games, because it looks like Valve has no interest in doing it. I played a demo, beta, whatever it was of it. It was a ton of fun. It feels really good. It's a good feeling game. And I would love to play it more. And for Xbox, it's going to be on Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you can jump on and play yourself some Back for Blood next month and check it out. It definitely, I don't know if it's the type of game I would put 100 hours into. It seems like the type of game I would play for 5 to 10 and then probably be like, that's pretty cool. I'm never touching this again. But who knows? I am excited to check that out though. That comes on October 12th. And then October 22nd is the thing I've been waiting for, is Battlefield 2042. So it's expected by the end of September. There's going to be another tech test of some type, probably an open beta or an open demo or whatever they're going to call it. I'm NDA'd on what I've played of it so far, so I won't comment on anything that hasn't been public. But from what they've shown publicly, it's exciting to see what they're doing. It looks like Battlefield 3-4, which is what I want to go back to. Battlefield 1 and 5, I appreciated what they were trying to do. I don't hate those time frames to play games in. I just still don't think that was really the move to make, personally. I wish they would have. I wish they would have not done that. I wish that. I wish we even if they would have given us a 2142 sequel or something, or heaven forbid they give us a Bad Company game. But 2042 definitely looks like it's more up my alley, and I'm excited to get back into that gigantic, crazy game world. That comes on October 22nd. Kind of a dark horse for me that I don't know if I'm interested in or not, but the gameplay I've seen looks awesome, is the Guardians of the Galaxy game. It has a very Mass Effect, but looser. It's interesting. It's suffering from the same thing that the Avengers game does, where the characters don't look the same and they're not voiced by the same people as the movie, or the movies. So there's definitely kind of that weird thing that goes on with your head when you're looking at it, because you want to see the Peter Quill that but it's not. He's blonde in the game. He has a different voice actor, but it still looks fun, and it looks like it's going to have some interesting gameplay and other mechanics going on. So that comes out on October 26th. And then the final one I'm going to talk about on this podcast is Age of Empires 4. This is a tough one for me because Age of Empires 2 is to this day probably my most played game ever. And my issue comes from 3. I didn't vibe with. I probably still played a couple hundred hours of 3 back when it came out, and then I just dropped off. And I've gone back to 2 over and over and over again, especially the more recent remasters they've done that are like make it seem like a new game almost, but it's still that like 2D sprite animation. It's so cool. F4, from what we've seen so far, I hate the way it looks. I think the art style is atrociously bad. It just looks really bad. I really don't like it. I haven't touched it. I haven't played it yet. I'm going to, like, obviously. It comes out on October 28th. It's a weird one because what's weird about it is that it looks like in a bunch of ways, it's 3D rendered, and there's a bunch of effects and like damage to buildings and stuff that looks really good. But then you have like camels that are twice as big as a house. Like their scaling on the characters and stuff looks so weird and so cartoony. Very and 3 had this issue as well. And so I'm really bummed. I get that from a gameplay point of view, from a especially competitive gameplay point of view, it seems like they've pushed more that direction to satisfy that part of the community, which is probably the part of the community that keeps the game alive. But for people like me who want to have some semblance of like your soldiers looking like they could actually walk through the doors of the houses and say, I'm weird about that. Company of Heroes does a really good job of that, like appropriate scaling and stuff. I don't know. I should be insanely excited about 4, but the fact that they've gone back to the Middle Ages and they didn't go forward like I thought they would, I don't know, man. I'm conflicted, but I'm definitely gonna play it. And that comes out, I think, like I said, October 28th. Okay, we're going to move on to some listener questions. Like I said before, if you have any of your own, leave them in the YouTube comments. Check out the Patreon or follow me on Twitter at Bondiesel, and you'll see me post asking for questions every week. So this week we have Master Prime. First, we've got 3 questions here. Our first one being, are free-to-play games the future? Probably not forever. I think that they've definitely established themselves as a very attractive monetary strategy, and it seems like they have they've probably established themselves probably permanently as existing, but it seems like they may become kind of like a not necessarily a side project, but an avenue for spinoffs. So we're under the impression that that's like what Heartland is going to be for the Division franchise, where hopefully they continue doing mainline games, but that Heartland is going to be some type of game that's like a free to play experience, that will like bridge the gaps between the big games or whatever, or just allow them to do something else with the IP. So yeah, I think that free to play is probably around forever in some capacity. You see games like Fortnite and stuff doing it, and it's just, even Destiny 2 went to it. So it's probably here to stay, and I think it's hard to decide. It's hard to tell right now if that's a good or a bad thing. The second question from Master Prime is, are you going to play Battlefield 2042 Hazard Zone? This is a rumored mode in 2042 that's supposed to be very Tarkov-ish, PvE VP type of mode where you loot and you attain gear and get better gear, and you keep it until you die, and then someone else can have it. The implementation will be interesting. If it's a more casual form, but it's supposed to give you the feel of the Division, the Division of Escape from Tarkov, that there's probably a market for that, because Tarkov is very punishing to the point of like not being fun a lot of the time. And like for me, what happens with Tarkov is I play it to a point where I just kind of get like overwhelmed and I just stop playing, and that happens almost every wipe. I'm actually dealing with that right now, even though it's fairly early in the current wipe. So if Hazard Zone can provide a similar experience, but one that's much more approachable and jump intoable, then I'll absolutely play it. I'm gonna try it out, even if it's not a Tarkov thing. Like it's been rumored, I'm sure I'll check it out. But I really hope it is. Tarkov could really use some AAA competition. I also don't believe there's any AAA studios who want to compete with Tarkov, though. Not 100%. That game, that what they're trying to do with Tarkov is probably not a thing that any AAA dev or especially any publisher would ever want to dip their toes into. It is probably not worth it in the long run, but we'll see. So I'm excited to see what Hazard Zone is, but looks like we're probably gonna have to wait a few more weeks. And then the final question for Master Prime is hopes for the next Ubisoft Forward. Well, I'm hoping it's next month or this month in September. That would be cool, maybe towards the end of the month. I have to be totally honest, I'm so whatever about every single Ubisoft franchise at this point. The only thing I care about is that we see something from either or Division 2's content that's coming or Heartland. I would prefer both, even though like I think I've said before, I think Heartland will get its own event. I would guess that, so it wouldn't surprise me if they at least tell us something about the Division 2. But who knows? It's all speculation, man. I can honestly say over the last 5 or whatever years of the Division, I always was able to like snuff out a little bit of information from somewhere or some places, to have even just a little bit of a clue what's going on before it happens. I can tell you with complete honesty right now, I have no idea what's going on with Division 2 or Heartland. Not a clue. I know as much as anyone who's listening, it seems like. So there we are. So I appreciate those questions. Thank you. And then Zeka on Twitter also asked here, I recently saw some discussion in Portugal about games for education, and there's actually some really good science to back it up. Do you have an opinion on that? Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a reality that games are going to become more and more and more a part of our daily lives. As the generations go by and games become less taboo, like I think they essentially are at this point. I was joking with some of my friends about how, like retirement homes even soon, but especially by the time I'm retirement age, are gonna need game systems. Maybe it'll be retro systems for the old people, but maybe it'll be new stuff too. And I think gaming is becoming much more of a acceptable thing for adults to do, and then that will lead it to becoming more part of the general culture, and then I think you'll see education and other parts of our lives take advantage of that. I know my wife inquired with me about the Assassin's Creed, their like history modes. I think it was in Origins and Odyssey and maybe Valhalla, or maybe that's not released yet. And it's a mode of that game where there's not combat and fighting and stuff, but it's a place where you can explore those worlds, and it will show you like I think in like Origins, you can go to the pyramids and they'll show you like this big interactive thing using the game to explain the history of the pyramids and how they were built and all that stuff. So yeah, I absolutely think games will become a part of education, both as games become less taboo in general, and as students, as games just get more advanced. But then also, especially, I mean, I'm 33, and so you have to think that brand new teachers coming into their jobs are 10 years younger than me and have probably been playing. I mean, you have to think like someone who's 10 years younger than me, their first gaming systems were like the end of like the PS2 Xbox era and the beginning of the Xbox One PS4 era. Like, they weren't playing Super Nintendo like I was, when I was that, little kid. So they've experienced a higher level, or at least fidelity, of gaming their entire lives. And they've grown up in a world that is more accepting of adults playing video games, and of video games just being a part of our culture. Eventually people are going to realize that video games absolutely destroy, music and movies when it comes to how much money they make and things like that. It's still kind of like, it seems like people don't know that yet. They don't realize that the gaming industry is just so much bigger than most other media, industries right now. So yes, I think that's really cool. I'm excited to see, especially with VR and augmented reality and things like that, the kind of things that people can do with education and with games and gaming. So again, thank you guys for the questions. Always feel free to hit me up with topics or questions in general. As for some quick content updates, like I said, I've moved the stream to YouTube. I'm trying to do videos more often. I'm trying to do at least 2 or 3 a week. If Division news comes out, that's probably going to be the priority. But really anything that wets my whistle, that is something I want to talk about, I'll jump on, do a 10, 20-minute video and try to have at least something interesting in the background for you to watch while I talk. And as I'm doing it right now, if you're watching it live or if you watch it on YouTube, I'm also streaming live the podcast for here on out, or at least as far as I can plan. And we're going to do that from here on out. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy actually getting to talk, and I hope to start, and I know I've said this 100 times, to start bringing on guests and stuff, which will be more natural to do on video, where we can kind of both be on screen and talk. So for any video listeners, that could be interesting, but we'll see. And that's this show. That's the show for this week. It's a little bit shorter than normal. Honestly, I struggled with topics this week, and hopefully there's some more interesting stuff or some more pertinent stuff to my interest and your interest next week. So I do stream here on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when I'm live, I would very much appreciate that. Also, if you'd be willing to check out some videos, maybe put on a playlist of all of my videos and just let them play. I am trying to get partnership. I am trying to be offered, that role so I can have membership and do the other things here on YouTube. Together we can make it happen. You can check me out on Twitter at Bondiesel, or you can check out at the EchoCast if you just want gaming tweets and retweets and things like that. If you want some EchoCast or Bondiesel merch, check out streamlabs.com/Bondiesel. The link is down below. And that's all I have. So until next time.